Perfect.
Oh, hello, my darling, powerful listeners. Welcome, welcome to another amazing episode of the Powerful Inc. Startup Stories podcast. We are wrapping up season 1. I can't even get my head around it. It's been a wild first quarter of the year, and we're going to bring it home with a really heartfelt, very relatable story. I've got Coach Kacy saying on with me today, and Kacy has been like letting herself out, if you will, for years, and has now come into a place of flow and alignment and really self-knowing through the heart in the service. So she's a transformational coach. She's heart-centered. She's living life for her after having been a people pleaser and doing what she thought was, living life for others. Now because she's actualized her truth, she's bringing others along. And I would say she says she's been in business about 8 years. And in the last the more recent top years is where things are starting to click and the magic's flowing, and she's, getting to that deeper level. So welcome to the show, Kacy. Take us away from there and tell us about how your journey's been.
Oh, thank you so much. Such a beautiful intro. And I know that you guys can't see her video, but something I found so beautiful was like watching Mia as she was saying the introduction and sharing about me. She had her eyes closed and she was very centered in the present moment, not in her head, very authentic. So I just really wanted to say that's so beautiful, Mia. Like you're not, you're just coming from your truth. There's no right, there's no wrong. It's just how it's gonna flow. And here we are, we're flowing.
This is, oh my God, this conversation is gonna be crazy. Yes, I do that. And I'm a little self-conscious about closing my eyes, but I've surrendered to it because I know I'm doing it right now. That when I go in, that's where I can really kind of see that cosmic portal, if you will. And like I'm tearing up already. And I just like I feel into you, right? Like I'm feeling into you. And Kacy has this, like there's just so many dimensions to how she's become who she is today. And that is the real intent of you guys listening, is to know that these things don't happen overnight, despite what the internet is trying to sell you. Right. So, Kacy, let's hear your origin story.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you shared that I've been in business 8 years. 10 years ago, I was pursuing medicine. So my parents immigrated to Canada when I was about 5 years old, and they wanted a better life. They wanted more opportunity. Totally, I get it. Like I just spent the last year living in Costa Rica. It's beautiful, but it is a third world country. There's not as many opportunities as we have, right? And so my husband and I just moved back to Toronto recently, recognizing, wow, this is what my parents did for me to have this life, right? So very grateful. And so that's where it started. And it was hard, not gonna lie. My parents had nothing. They worked 3 jobs each, super hard. I basically raised myself. And then when I was 8, my brother was born, my little baby brother. So I'm 8 years older than him.
Yeah.
So I essentially was able to support him, love him, raise him. But I was like, for lack of better words, I gave up my childhood and I didn't play. I didn't know how to, I didn't know how to just be a kid. I was already responsible, right? I was. And what became really clear to me through my parents' conversation and just seeing them struggle, I was like, I have to make something of myself. I have to be successful. That was what little 8-year-old Kacy said. You can't, I don't know if I can swear on here, but you can't mess around. I was like, you can't fuck around. You have to go all in and pursue the thing. And for me at the time, my parents, God bless their hearts, were like, Kacy, you're such an excellent healer, right? They didn't have the words of coach or healer energy. It was very much traditional. Kacy, you are such a healer and you have such love for people. You got to be a doctor. And that was the thing. And so I put my heart and soul into it. Like I pursued that for my entire, like, essentially like entire school years, plus in university and college. I became a paramedic. I was working towards getting into medical school. And it was like all of this stuff was happening. And I remember, Mia, this month of my life when I was like 20, like early 20s. And it was like I was going during the day to medical school interviews. And I had already gotten into a few. My parents, because med school is a lot, like there's an investment up front, right?
Yeah.
So my parents were ready. And at this point, they had multiple properties. They had built something for
Built
themselves,
an empire.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So they were like willing and ready to invest, like second mortgage their house to pay for my schooling.
Right.
And so I was like, it wasn't that I didn't want them to support me, but I just, in my heart, there was like this little nudge, and I didn't know at the time it was called my intuition.
Yeah.
But it was nudging me like, are you sure? Like, are you sure you want this? Is this real for you? And I just remember feeling this like gross, like, oh, like puke, not nervous puke of, oh, I'm going on stage and butterflies. It was a puke of like, oh gosh, is this what you really want? Like, you're going to do this for the rest of your life?
Yeah.
Not that there's anything wrong with it, but it just wasn't for me.
Yeah.
And I, at some level, knew it, but I kept pursuing because I thought this is the only way. And I had attached so much of my identity to it of if I don't do this, then I'm a failure. Or if I don't do this, then what? Right?
Or let my parents down, or what will I be? Or how do I move the last 20 years of life into something else?
Exactly. How do you do that? How do you start over? Right. And I didn't know how to start over. I was like dead scared. I'm like, I am attached to this thing. If I don't do this thing, then I. So I would, during the day, go to med school interviews, be this perfect student, this perfect person that you would look at and be like, oh my God, she has her shit together. Like she's got this. She's moving down this lane and whatever. But internally in my heart, like I was very lonely. I was sad. I was depressed at some level. And at night, I would just go home, and I was living in my mom's basement at the time, just getting ready for school and all that. And I was just smoking pot. I thought I was like, oh, this is fun. This is what people do. But I didn't realize, I didn't have the awareness to realize I'm actually numbing emotions and numbing myself and doing this. So I continue down that path for a couple months. I get into med school, and I have this choice now. We're enrolling, we're getting ready and all that. And I now, especially after having experienced this so many times in my life, but that being one of the first, truly believe in divine timing, and that God, the universe, spirit will, if you have a desire in your heart, even an inkling of something different, will show you the way. Like, so this is what happened. So I was at this coffee shop, and I'm, like just being me. I'm still inspiring. I'm still the light that I am. I still have those energy to create in the world, right? But I'm directing it towards this thing that I think I should do. Quotes, air quotes, should. So I meet this guy at this coffee shop just randomly. Like I'm having coffee, he is, and we just start talking, right? And I was telling him about my dreams of like, oh my gosh, I just want to support people, and I see myself doing this and talking and all this. And at the time I was like, I want to travel and want to be a doctor. I could do Doctors Without Borders. Like I thought I had to do the thing and then do the thing I actually wanted to do. Do you see what I mean? Like I was
like use the thing as a bridge to get to the inner calling. So if I do this, I can make it fit in this way, and so everybody's happy, and I'm compromising, meeting in the middle.
Like I can't just travel. That's crazy. I have to travel as a doctor. I can't just speak on stage. I have to speak as a professional. Right. So there was that. So I was talking to him, and I was like, but there's parts of me, and I was sharing with him that I was like, but I'm not sure. I'm afraid. I don't know if this is my path. I know I want to do all this, and just basically like pouring my heart out to
the stranger in the coffee shop.
Who often are the best because they don't know anything about your life.
That's right.
So he says to me, he's like, wow, it sounds like you're super inspiring and like you have so much to offer the world. He's like, have you ever heard of this thing called Landmark? And I was like, no, what is that? And he's like, it's a personal development program. And I had like no prior concept of
Tony Robbins
development program. I'm like, what? And it was like, that was this drop in the ocean that like started it all. It's like a decade ago. And I just basically, like, I remember that very day, I went to Landmark. I was in Toronto. I went to the office. I had some cash. I'm like, I need to put down money for the next available seminar. I have to do this. Like, that was the God's like, you got to do this. You have
take action now.
Take action now. You got $100, put it down, reserve your spot, right? So I paid off little by little, week by week, because I think I had 3 or 4 weeks before the next seminar. I paid it all off. It was like $800 or whatever at the time. And I went to my weekend not knowing what to expect. I had no idea. But I just remember, I'm like, I have to do this. It doesn't make sense. I don't know, but I have to do this. So we start. And those 3 days, like, literally changed my life forever. The trajectory of who I was, what I wanted, like the woman I am today, I wouldn't be sitting here had I not made that one single choice, which at this point seems like, well, I just went to a seminar. But it's like, no, I literally opened up my heart, cracked open my brain, looked at all the things that I wanted to shift, and I started on the journey, right? It wasn't an overnight, like everything in my life all of a sudden was click, fixed. It was, no, I have now awareness and a new set of tools to look. So to just get into the details of the story a little bit more, because this is really powerful, I was on day 1 and it was day 3. It was 3 days. So day 1, the instructor, the teacher is talking about blind spots. And she's like, you know, when you're driving a car, you check your blind spot, you change lanes. You don't just like randomly just like swerve, because that's what causes accidents. She's like, but how many of you are living your life on autopilot without even looking at what's in your blind spot? How many of you are just drifting through life? And that was like huge for me. And we did an exercise, which I don't even remember what it was, but I remember the revelation. It was like a moment of like, life sat me down and it was like, aha. It was like, life is basically like, you have been trying to be the perfect daughter, the perfect student, the perfect whatever, to try and save your family, to try and make all of their suffering worth it. And I was like, that's not on me. I don't have to do that in that way. I can serve my family, but I don't need to save my family. You know, there's a difference. So I went home after that realization that night and just bawling, like tears of joy, relief, confusion, sadness, all of that. And I'm like, told my mom, I'm like, Mom, I'm not going to med school.
And right away, because that was a very good question. Having those realizations, but then having to really test and hold to them in the audience that can be the most critical and difficult, like, you know, possibly least supportive. So day 1, Landmark goes home, tells parents.
I'm like, Mom, I can't do this. I have been trying to put this mask on. I've been carrying all the weight. This is not for me. I cannot continue. And she's like, okay. She's like, what are you going to do? And I'm like, I want to travel and write. Like, that's what I told her. She's like,
med school to
nomad. So essentially just like free spirit. Like, I just want to own nothing and travel and write. Essentially, gypsy nomad. I have this dream. Like, Mia, I would be up like late at night looking at travel bloggers and people doing it. And I'd be like, how the hell do they do that?
Totally.
I'm over here studying to be a doctor, which is awesome, but I want to do that. So tell her. And she's like, okay, I support you. I love you, whatever you need. I'm not sure what you're doing, but I get it. And she's like, okay, like, I love you. So fast forward, you know, a couple, like, I did all the Landmark training. I dove deeper. I started coaching people. I became a production manager and a course supervisor, which is basically the people who put on the forums to serve and support the other people coming in for transformation. So I started to step into coach role, into service of transformation role, and started to look at my own life deeper. Because when you do the work, as you know, and when I say the work, it's like really the inner work and the healing, when you serve other people and in this field, you have to do the work. It's not just like I'll do it if I feel like it. It's like, no, like, you got to be authentic and in integrity with what you want, so you can continue to serve in a really powerful way, right? So
Yes.
I learned so many tools and skill sets and how to create my life. And at the time, I was in a lot of debt. So
Mhm.
like in university, they gave me hundreds, like not hundreds of thousands, I was exaggerating, like 20, 30,000s, which at the time felt like six
It's,
figures to
oh
me,
yeah,
right?
sure.
So I bought like my MacBook. I did this, I did that. And then before I knew it, I was like in debt and I had no financial literacy or education. All I knew was study, study, study,
Mhm, mhm.
then debt,
Money
and
comes
you'll,
later,
you'll
whatever.
figure it out
Yeah,
somehow, fingers crossed.
yeah.
I was in a lot of debt. And so, the work helped me really clean it up, get clarity, not be so afraid to look at money, all this stuff, right?
Mhm, mhm.
And then after a couple of years of being in Landmark and like really absorbing all of what I knew I needed to absorb, I decided it was actually now time to travel and write. I remember like it was almost like I made that declaration, but I didn't have the body, I didn't have the capacity yet to just like book a ticket and get on a plane
Yeah.
and go travel. Like I was like, had to figure out my groundings and my bearings. So I did that for 2 years. And then it was just like, I hit a crossroads again of, okay, Kacy, like, what's your next level of growth? Like, what are you doing here? You're
Mhm.
kind of plateaued. And so I
Yes.
booked a ticket to Peru. And even how that unfolded was crazy. One of my friends ended up asking me, he's like, Kacy, what do you want? What do you want? You
Mhm.
look super unhappy these days. What do you want? And I'm like, I just want to travel and write. Like, I was like, again, that's what I want to do. And
I'm
he's
coming
like,
back.
why don't you just do it?
Mhm.
And I'm like, oh, got it. I could just do that. He ends up pulling his credit card out. He's like, do it, book the ticket. And 60 days later, I was on a plane to Peru with my life cleaned up, like in order. And I basically went to Peru. I backpacked for 3 months. I was coaching people, serving. Like, this is just
Mhm.
spewing out of me, right?
Mhm.
And I
Mhm.
came back to Toronto after 3 months and met my husband. And
Mm.
so, like, I guess the origin story really is coming from a place of not listening to my intuition to then trusting my intuition, like really leaning in that when my heart speaks and it's like, this is what you got to do, that nudge is not going to go away. It's just going to
Mhm.
get louder. And
Mhm.
over time, it's like going to become impossible not to do that thing. So I've learned if I hear it, I might as well just do it, like take action on that.
So this is such a key point, and I really want people to hear that once it starts, it's like opening Pandora's box, and you can take all kinds of actions towards it. So it doesn't have to be a plane ticket to Peru, but it's interesting, you know, the timing and the almost still the continued hesitation in your story until that point where your friend really pushed you to do it. And then things opened up to another level. So there's all these sort of micro moments that opened more doors of possibility that then you explored further and have now created such a large and robust outcome that is still unfolding, but now you're a bit more practiced in it. So you can, say yes faster and with greater certainty and these sorts of things. And so when we're starting this journey or having these small inklings, I've really been broadcasting, just saying yeses to coffee with a friend that maybe you haven't for months, or a night out at the movies with your loved one that you've been putting off because chores, yada, yada, mom life, employee, whatever, whatever. And so they don't have to be grand gestures. They will come to that in good time. And it's just the practice to hone the intuition, the practice of saying yes to those little callings that can be very much part of our everyday life. And it's like practicing push-ups. You start with one, and then you do 10, and then before you know it, you're doing 100. And then before you know it, you're doing 1,000, metaphorically speaking, or not.
Yeah, we just got to start. And something I've learned is I get to also be okay with like not being great at it in the beginning.
Yes.
That's really been really hard. I'm not gonna lie. Like I just want to
Well,
be like
yeah,
excellent and
yeah,
perfect.
yeah.
sometimes it really does stop me, you know?
Mhm.
It's like I'm scared and I don't want to do the thing because I don't
Mhm.
want to suck and oh my God.
Mhm. Mhm.
But I'm like, okay, like if it matters to you, because that's the thing too. Is it a priority? Does it matter? Am I willing to suck at this to be better at this later? That's the opportunity, right? And I don't think that I would start all these new things all at once, all the time, and
Mhm.
give myself this experience of being really, really bad at everything, because that's too much.
Yeah.
I don't like that experience. But if it's one thing that I want to improve, can I start now? And for me at the time, it was my entire life in the sense of I don't like how my life is or was. I don't like feeling stuck. I don't like feeling like I'm heading in a direction where someone else is saying that this is what I have to do for the rest of my life, because that's what success means. And so
Yeah.
I realized, okay, well, if this opportunity is presenting itself to have coffee with a stranger, to go do a seminar that could possibly change my life, it was like, I must do it. I can't not. Like it's like
Mhm.
those moments where life is just like lovingly pushing you forward from the
Mhm.
back. It's like this wall is just like pushing you forward and
Mhm.
you can kick and scream, but it's
Mhm.
still gonna happen. So you could just surrender and trust and be like, okay, this direction, these people, these experiences are showing up so I can get closer to the thing I truly want.
Yes. Yes. And these breakthroughs, again, will be, in various shapes and sizes. And just practice. Like, I have this quote, I'm looking at it right now, and it says, in order to do something well, we must first be willing to do it badly. And it's quoted to Julia Cameron. And that's what you just said.
The artist,
So,
yeah,
the
Julia.
artist way. Okay. So, guys, get the fuck over yourselves. Team up with somebody else, because when you're going at it alone, you get so stuck in the head, right? Like I can't be the only one who's experiencing that. And Kacy, maybe you have some insights from some of the clients that you've served who we get so tangled up and this is everything and there's nothing else over that. No, come back to play, come back to that childhood curiosity of exploration. And as a startup solopreneur, would you say that it's fair to just get good at one or two things and get them going? So then you're established in yourself and you have confidence, and then you can kind of expand and explore a little bit. So walk us through then, medical school, life-changing events, pursuit of true alignment into building a very comfortable generating business while
Yeah.
kind of living this freestyle life.
Yeah. So like mastery takes time and mastery does not lie. I'm going to leave people a moment to take that in.
Mhm.
Mastery does not play games. Mastery doesn't have charades. There's no like illusions. There's no um what's the word? Shiny object syndrome in
Yeah.
mastery. Mastery is boring and it's repetitive, but it's also the most transformative thing ever.
Mhm.
And the fact is that for the last decade, whether I have chosen to, or it's just kind of unfolded at some level, I have been a coach in that way. Yes, I have the authentic, like I have a gift, I have a natural communicative gift. But if I hadn't practiced that, if I hadn't
Mhm.
actually honed in, I would not be able to be at this level of mastery that I am today. And
Mhm.
when I say mastery, I don't mean that I'm like the best coach ever. I'm better than anyone else. It's mastery with myself. And that just means that I'm like comfortable, but also willing to be uncomfortable in situations. Like
Yes.
I can now talk to anyone and have a conversation with them about anything
Mhm.
at whatever extreme they want to go. If they don't want to open up and they're not willing to dive deep, okay, we'll stay there. We'll play on the surface. I don't have an attachment to let's go deeper. We have to transform. We have to have a breakthrough, right?
Yeah.
Which is the
Because
novice.
it's not a reflection of you and your
Boom,
skills. You're
boom.
meeting them where they are. Because
Yeah.
you guys, I'm getting all goosebumpy.
Mm-hmm.
Let's repeat. Mastery takes time. The mastery that Kacy's talking about is the mastery of self, of true, aligned, fulfilled, expressed self. And this is why we can take safety and comfort ourselves with knowing that failure is not failure, it's practicing. I've never seen a baby walk on the first step. Show me that video. DM it to me now. So this is where knowing yourself gives you that roundedness to be boundaried, energetically protected, and knowing what your skill is, and knowing that you're going to have, if you're a coach or whatever service you're providing, you're going to have beautiful, incredible, heart expanding moments with clients. And then you're going to have some that just fucking suck.
Yeah, it's part of the journey.
It's
They're not
part of
all
the
like,
journey.
oh, like all coaching calls are not like hallelujah, like breakthrough. It's like you got to go through the day to day. You got to go through the person's stuff. You move through one, maybe you move 1 inch, maybe you move point
Mm-hmm.
inch, but there's still
Mm-hmm.
progress and transformation. So yeah, and then like mastery is being able to just be present, and that's where I feel I'm at. I don't get as swayed. I used to a lot, especially in figuring out where I stood in trying to help them, or, oh God, why don't they just get it? But then it's like
Mm-hmm.
loving them where they're at and recognizing you have chosen to pay me to serve you.
Mm-hmm.
So you get to move at the pace you're going to go. But when you need a loving kick in the ass, I'm going to give it to you. When I see something that is not working in alignment with what you said, you're going to have Coach Kacy compassionately talk to you.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like being okay too with saying the thing that you're like, oh my God, am I really going to say this? That's the thing. That's the coach that is the one that serves, not the coach who sits back and says, I'm just going to be nice. And oh my God, I'm not going to say anything. When no, this person has paid you their hard-earned dollars to change their life. So you can't just sit here and they're not your best friend. You're not here just like,
right.
Having coffee and chit-chatting. You are here for transformation. And sometimes that looks like chit-chatting because that's what is needed. But sometimes that looks like loving, compassionate from the heart, straight. What are you doing with your life right now? Are you sure this is the path you want to go? Right? Like with conviction.
Yes.
And the thing that I feel like with my journey and what you said about like just having a business that supports me and is lucrative, I didn't focus on that.
Mm-hmm.
That is not the main goal. The main goal is not how much money can I make? How many dollars can I earn? Even though that was what I was raised, right? Money was a scarcity. Money was limited. And so it was like, or the illusion of it was. And it was like that we have to hold on to what we have, or we have to get as much as we can and work as much. But now it's like, especially in my passion with coaching and serving, I'm like, okay, if I can serve this person and they're not willing to, or they're not able to financially afford the price that I've given to them, well, what can they afford? What is possible? They've clearly come to me. And I truly believe, Mia, like, and I say this with the most humility, is I am meant to serve a lot of people at really profound levels. So if you are magnetized into my realm and into my sphere, you're here for a reason. And I don't take that for granted. I'm not just like, you can't pay me, see you later, you're a dead lead or dead end. No, it's you're a human being who wants to change their life. Let's figure out how we can co-create this, if it aligns, you're willing to do the work. So it's taken time and it's not always been like stable. I've had jobs. I still have part-time gigs. I still, like supplement my business, because the thing that I realized very like in the middle of my journey, and a really good coach told me about this, is like when you put a lot of pressure on your business, it is going to not perform. It's like a human being, a pressurized human doesn't perform. So how can I expect my business that I love, that's my like, I'm going to be doing this 30, 40, 50, 100 years from now. Like I'm still speaking, people are still I'm still going to be serving and changing lives. I can't say I have to reach a certain level and it has to make me money and has to pay for all my bills, because then I'm like prostituting it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm just being like, I'm extorting it for that. And then it no longer becomes fun. It then becomes like, holy crap, I don't want to do this. This sucks. Versus letting it organically grow, letting it organically be nurtured and fed. And then if I gotta work a couple hours at freelance, do some contract work or do other stuff or do a sales role, that's fine. I'll use my skills. But the core is that I'm always serving. I'm always coaching. I'm always Coach Kacy, regardless of what role I'm in. It doesn't matter, right? So that's the thing with this journey and the real conversation of like really building a startup or building a business is like, you have to be willing to get that it's not going to give you all you need right from the start. And even on the journey, you cannot be like putting so much pressure on it. Because in our society, this like hustle culture and get shit done, and it's very tense. And I went down that path and I froze. Like I remember having one of my first $10,000 months, and then I could not for 6 months after make any more money because I was so stressed out. Like there was something in my nervous system that was like, are you going to be able to do it again?
Yeah.
How are we going to consistently do this?
Yeah.
Business coach says consistency is key. How am I going to market? So that aspect of my brain, the marketer, the inauthentic marketing aspect was like lit up trying to reproduce versus, well, how I created that result was building a relationship, having someone trust me, and then them saying, here's my entire team. I want you to coach them. Right. So we have to be slow and easy. And this might not be what someone wants to hear, which I get, but it's, if you need to get a job, right? Get a job.
Yes.
Supplement your income, support yourself, make sure you're nurtured, you're nourished. So even when you show up with your clients, you're not desperate. Because the amount of times I've lost sales in my business or in other roles or whatever is I've been desperate. I've been trying so hard to get this person to pay money that they can smell it, right? Energy precedes you. But when you're not desperate and you're laid back, like I've had clients where I've been like, you know what? I get you're financially strapped. Let's just do 6 weeks for free to start. Because I just love it. I'm like, I will serve you. I know I can change your life. And into week 2 or 3, the woman was like, oh, I actually just got this huge chunk of money coming in. I would love to pay you. Here's $2,000 or whatever. And I'm like, oh, thanks. So like, I get that there might be some people out there who are like, well, that's not consistent for your business. That's not, where are the numbers? How can you reproduce and all that stuff, right? And I'm not talking about like a corporate America business that we're building. I'm talking about your heart and your soul. You don't have to be broke to do this work, but you also don't need to be all about the money to do this work, right? You can find a balance. You can still generate a lot of cash. There's a lot of great ways to build programs and do all that stuff, but you first need to make sure it's coming from alignment. Is it coming from your heart, right?
Yes.
I rant for today.
This is so critical. And, you know, speaking from where I'm at and probably where listeners are at, the internet noise and the folly of comparison and kind of getting caught up in the smoke and mirrors that's out there. I've often been saying, why are we in business? To make money? But that's in a way to normalize receivership and accept payment for service, because that is a fair energetic exchange. It's completely fine. We pay for things everywhere we go, and it's completely fine to receive money for what we're offering. But where you're speaking to is like the next level of growing a business, but really of expressing your soul as a separate part of the business. And listeners will have heard me make this distinction as well. So when you are just, because there's so much coming out, so let me just try to take myself through it. When we die, what will matter will be the size of the love that we've released into the world. It will not be the bank account, although that will be a beautiful legacy for those after us or charities or wherever that money goes. But if you are a deep believer of your soul, then this lifetime serves to advance your soul's expansion. And all the other things are just like decoration to it. And you really walked us through that in a very meaningful way, especially with like, we're not building corporate America. No, we're not. P.S. 2 Canadians on the show today. Love it. And it's a beautiful thing because Kacy's making good money in her business, but she's, you know, giving herself space and removing pressure for that to be the end all be all. And I really appreciate that. It like gives me a bit of extra safety as I'm still working full time, that, you know, I don't have to be all of just one thing. Like, oh, I'm only going to be an entrepreneur. Just be yourself in the different ways that give you the life that you want, and the other pieces fall into place around that.
Yes, amen. Because what happens is when you don't put so much pressure, especially financially, you free that energy.
Yes.
And that energy is then able to come to you. And for a long time, I would think that if I had to work a job or do that stuff, I would be like, I was a loser, or I failed, or I was not an entrepreneur. And I was like, so there's so much shame and guilt and stuff around it. And then I remember sitting down, judgment. And my husband and I are both entrepreneurs. So think of a family or a lifestyle where you're both like, nah, I don't want to get a job, but we're going to kick ass in this business. And we're like, great, we have like $50 for groceries this week. So and we got to pay for that subscription and that. So it was like so much stress and pressure to avoid being a failure in our eyes. So it was really weird. And then we pivoted to, well, let's just both work full time. Let's do the things we need to do. And then before I saw it, like I just saw it in front of me, like clients started just like coming. I was like magnetized. I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. And then at a point you get to where, you know, you can do both. And then it comes to a point where it costs you more to work. So then you can make the conscious choice of, okay, well, where do I want to be? Because like quitting your job, traveling the world, like that's all great. It's a good experience, but it's also very glamorized. It's very traumatic on many levels. Once the dust settles and the excitement and the dopamine hit is up, you're still like, holy shit, I got bills to pay. Like, how am I going to? And you can't build something sustainable, right? So you have to just, and then because you can't build something sustainable and there's pressure, you start to inauthentically try to push out products. And then you're like desperate, and then the business doesn't work, and then you quit the business. And that's why so many people are not able to like continue to mastery, because mastery doesn't need you to do anything every day. Mastery is not like you have to do X amount of push-ups every day. Mastery, especially in this realm, is staying on the path. That's what it is. Stay on the path. Even when you're off the path and you're like, oh God, what should I do? Just get back on the path. One thing, get back on the path, keep going the path. And those who walk the path the longest are the masters.
Yes. Those who walk the path the longest are the masters. So simplified and so unlabeled, uncategorized, right? This is, again, like you can be an entrepreneur and be an employee. You can be an entrepreneur and travel. You can still hold a job. It's, again, more that practice of what are you here to do and who needs you is the other big element. And that is, again, the get over yourself, because people are looking for you and me and her and them. And that is where you connect to that deeper frequency of what's available, right? And this, even in this conversation, I feel like I've been coached to an extent. It's been so freeing. It's like just removing more excuses, resistance, insecurities, and settling in, like just, get real comfy on the couch with cozy blanket and just kind of settle into really who you are. And so practicing that is the journey, and practicing that will look different day to day and person to person. And so finding some kind of nice ritual or half a dozen rituals where you can start to access that and hone the skill of returning to path. And so, Kacy, how have you practiced your return to path over these years?
I mean, being human, you just keep falling off so many times. And I think what I've seen myself do is sometimes it takes me a lot longer, but sometimes it's shorter. And that can vary under different things. Time of month, time of year, money's in the bank account. Like there's all these different factors and layers, what has caused me to come off the path. But the one thing that consistently just has me come back to center is reminding myself that I'm okay here. Like I'm good here. Just something as simple. And yes, I have my practices. I journal and meditate, and I can tell you all that. You've probably heard it a million times, right? Which those are good tools. But I found that if I just do the tools without like a really like clear like intention or purpose, it just becomes another thing I have to do. And if I don't do it, then I shame myself, which takes me further off the path.
Yes.
So it's like this catch-22. So I think I've just brought it down to something very simple as like when I feel overwhelmed, or maybe I don't feel as successful, or maybe I'm like questioning, am I moving forward fast enough? What's happening, right? I just take a moment and I'm just like, I breathe. I'm like, I'm here right now, right? Like I'm okay right now. I have food on the table. I have a house to sleep in. I have a beautiful, amazing, powerful husband by my side. I have love in my life. Like the simple things. I have that. And I just remind myself, even if I'm in the mud of resistance, right? And I'm like, I have like a hand out being like, someone help me, right? Because I'm drowning. I can be that. I can literally in my mind just say, or even out loud, like, you're okay, right? Like sometimes I just like with love need to tell myself to calm the fuck down, like chill out. You don't have to be so like crazy about getting all of it done, and I have to do it now and quarterly goals and blah blah blah. Shut up, like shh. Settle down, breathe. It's all gonna work out. You're here now. You're good. What can you do right now? What is one thing? And then I didn't, and then I like essentially like a little child. I'm just
the tantrum and then the self-regulation.
Yes. And that can be as simple as that. It doesn't have to be fancy or any of that stuff. Just sit down. You're good. Everything's fine. I love you. You're safe. And then, oh, okay. And then I, have a coach. I have people in my life that I talk to that I just need to get it all out. And then there's clarity. So that also helps me get on the path. It's just having an ear to just have all of this come out of my body. And then as it's coming out, there's like clarity happening, and then there's good feedback. So then there's plans to move forward, right? Because we all need support.
Yeah. We all get bunched up, and casting that line to the future, which really would be, I would think, more of a feeling of a way that we want to feel and look back on our life, is staying connected. So being present without loss of the future, but not in a pressured way, is our North Star. That's what we're always back. Yes. Oh my God, so much.
Don't look back or whatever. But it's like, no, like, oh my God, like even having a conversation with you, I'm like, wow, like I've come a long way. Oh my God.
Yes.
Wow, I've walked a long path, but I'm here now. And that's part of I'm here now, right? I've landed here. So like you said, like get comfy, land. You don't have to sit here forever. And that's kind of an illusion sometimes I fall into, is like, oh my God, this is going to be my forever. Am I going to be stuck like this forever? And it's like, no, just breathe. You've walked a long journey and you've come here, and congratulate yourself. And now Sit for how long you need to sit. You don't need to keep being emotional all the time. Just sit, breathe, assess. And sometimes what I'll do is like once a month or whenever I feel inspired, I'll take just a day completely off. No clients, no work, no previous meetings, nothing in my schedule. And I'll call it like a dream reset, where I'll literally just sit and look at my business, my life. What do I want? What do I want to create? I did that like 2 weeks ago, and on a Friday, and on the Monday we were back in Toronto. So it's powerful. It's powerful. Just a dream reset quickly of what do I want? What am I creating? Because we can get so lost in the creation, what we've already created, that it becomes hard to take a moment to just look again. So that's also very helpful.
Beautiful, beautiful wisdom.
Thank you.
Love it. I feel like I could talk to you for the rest of the day.
Likewise.
This was well worth the rescheduling. So listeners, you know, sometimes you see the tip of the iceberg, but there's so much that goes on behind. And I knew that Kacy and I would come together when the time was right. I wasn't worried about it. Last year, I would have been like freaking out and sweating and like, oh no, it means this and this and this. And this year, I'm just like, it's fine, man. We just go with the flow. We're like water, no problem. And look at the magic that came out of it. It's been amazing and a real treat. And I hope the beginning of a continued online friendship and or in person, because I do get out to Ontario sometimes.
Where are you at?
I'm in BC.
Oh, I used to live in BC. I love BC, the mountains. Yes, definitely in person, online, friendship of all sorts. Thank you for this beautiful space. You're very, very generous in the space that you create and the love in which you set. It's challenging sometimes to be connected to the host, just to be real, right? It's like interviews, and sometimes it's hard to flow because there's so many things to check off, so to speak, but you are magnificent at this and you're going with the flow. And I'm just very, very grateful to be here today. Thank you.
Well, thank you as well. And I hope you have a fabulous, floaty, wonderful rest of your day. And I look forward to seeing you online, and I'll drop your website. Is there anything else that you want to share with our listeners about where to find you or how to work with you before we close off?
Yeah, they can actually get my free book that I recently wrote last year. Actually, I launched in December. It's called Move From Your Head to Your Heart. That's basically what my journey has been. And they can get it on my website as well. But if they go directly to tuneintoyourheart.com, they can get it there too. I'm also very active on Facebook, so they can connect with me there. Yeah, they'll find me. If they're meant to find me, they will find me.
That's right. Beautiful. All right, I'll drop those in the show notes, and have a wonderful day. Thanks for joining me.
You too.